So, good morning, everyone. Welcome to a new subject, particularly on the kids, microbiome for kids. So far, we have been talking about number one, gut microbiome, number two, vaginal microbiome. आज बात करते हैं बच्चों की 0 to 14 years old, and how microbiome can help. And at Gene Fertiletics, there is a very good product by name Lil Bio, which is going to really help a lot of kids. So, Sushant, over to you. How do you want to take this talk forward today?
Sure. Thanks, Rupinder sir, and welcome everyone. So, as a lot of people know, April is in World Autism Month, or what we call as Autism Awareness Month, right? And we have been seeing a lot of parents approaching us, about a solution for autism, because this is, if you see statistics, around 1 out of every 68 children globally is suffering from autism. Right, in India, it is 1 out of 500, right? But again, uh, the
Yeah.
growth of neurodegenerative disorders is increasing even in children, right? And
Yeah.
a lot of people think autism, okay, it is genetic, or go for behavioral therapies, or most of the doctors would recommend antibiotics and drugs, just from the point of view of altering your concentration of serotonin inside the brain, and right. And but it does have side effects. So kids start having diarrhea, constipation, behavioral issues, being aggressive, nausea, vomiting, infections, diarrhea. So there's a lot of these side effects which is there of all these drugs, right? And again, uh these further disbalances the biology, right? And considering autism, eczema, food intolerances, food allergies, child respiratory issues, a lot of these things. So we thought over, so we really need a separate product, right, to understand the microbiome of child. So I will come back to why microbiome is linked to autism, but let me brief
Yeah.
you. So the product, as Rupinder ji told about the Lil Bio, which is again, no one in Asia specifically is working on a child's microbiome, right? Apart from us. So there are a couple of more companies, which is, one is in US, one is in UK, right? Apart from globally, we are the only third
Yeah.
company focusing on infant health and child health, right? And so essentially, there has been a lot of research going on around autism spectrum disorder, right? And now people has found that, or scientists have found that, there's a lot of deep-rooted connection between gut microbiome and the, development of autism in children, right? And again, so let us discuss this, break this into a couple of points. First, let us discuss about a very vital communication model inside our body, which is a gut brain axis, right? So we know, gut and brain are communicating with each other, right? So let us, for the benefit of everyone, let us decode that in a very simple language, so that सब लोगों को समझ में आएगा actually gut brain कैसे बात कर रहे हैं एक दूसरे से, so today we'll be mixing Hindi English both, so that so for someone who can understand a bit of, can't understand bit of biotech language,
Yeah. So
we
more,
can,
more, more of
yeah,
more of English, Yeah.
yeah,
So
we can convert that into a layman language, right? So essentially,
yeah.
there are 100 million nerve cells which live inside our gut, right? And they totally form together form a network, what we call as enteric nervous system, right? ENS, right? And that's
Yeah.
why gut is also called the second brain, right? So ENS talks to your central nervous system through vagus nerve, through various neurotransmitters produced through hormones, through immune responses, right? So essentially, like, so when we talk
Yeah.
of neurotransmitter, these are beneficial things which help this communication inside the body. So these are like chemical messages, right? And we know that
Yep.
serotonin is an happy hormone, or what we call as what keeps us happy and away from stress and depression. So 90% of serotonin is produced in the gut, right? And it via vagus nerve, so gut and brain are connected through vagus nerve. So via vagus nerve, this serotonin crosses the blood brain barrier, and it goes to brain and does a lot of good things inside the brain, right? Similarly, dopamine, 50% dopamine is produced in the gut, right? So all these, even gut, like we discussed during the last talk, that gut also impact, in terms of stress levels by activating HPA axis. Again, it is directly or indirectly impacting what and how much of each hormone has to be produced, right? So again, the gut
Right.
axis has a larger role to play in development of autism, right? And considering why do children develop autism, how, if someone, a 3 months, 6 months, 6 months old baby, or a 1 year old baby, or even a 4 year old baby, why he has behavioral abnormalities, why he is lacking social communication, social interaction. Even, I've seen a couple of customers, children can't speak, with their teacher in the school, right? Or they can't even have an eye to eye contact, right? Or they become very aggressive, if they're eating something, so there are a lot of these symptoms which relate to autism. And again, a lot of people have found that children who have autism also have huge digestive issues, like bloating, constipation. It's chronic constipation,
Yeah.
to be very
Yeah.
precise.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now what we
Yes, I have two questions.
yeah, yeah.
Sorry, I'm disrupting your thought process, but I have two questions. One, possibly, I don't know, I will ask some questions, probably you may not have thought about it, but then, you said that 1 out of 68 kids, globally is autism affected, and in India, it is 1 out of 500. So my question is, why less in India and why more outside? So that's question one. Second question is, uh, so even to me, sometimes back, I was always thinking that autism is, genetics. So, how do you answer these 2 points?
Okay, so what we'll do is, so whatever I'm sharing right now, right, I will divide the discussion is, how the autism is developed, the role of microbiome, right, and the
Yeah.
specific metabolites involved in, development of autism, that will answer all these questions, right? So essentially,
Right.
what we have also found, and research also found, that autism begins in mother's microbiome, right? So again, during the pregnancy, right? So the colonization of the microbes, the bacteria in child starts even before the child is born, right? And it, so when the
Hmm.
child, passes through mother's womb, in placenta, and in umbilical fluid, right? So all these microbes are transferred from mother to child, right? And what happens is these, and after the birth, a lot of these bacterias, actually, like bifidobacterium bacterias, and a lot of other, important bacteria, lactobacillus, and all these, are transferred from breast milk to the child, right? And these start colonizing the
Hmm.
gut of the child, and depending upon, which bacteria is there, it impacts the neurological development of child, right? So essentially, we know that 70% of immune cells in our gut lining, right? And gut brain, as I explained, gut brain talk to each other, right? So the period between the conception and gestation, right, of the mother is really, really
Hmm.
important, because what they eat, if they have some sort of infections, whether taking antibiotics, what kind of environment, stress, all these have an impact on the neurological development of the child, right? So essentially, a lot of these things. So what happens is, when whatever we are eating or stress, there are a lot of, it directly impacts the microbiome, right? And the microbiome, the microbes produce a lot of metabolites, right? And a lot of, so it impacts the bioavailability of various, metabolites and hormones, right? And even nutrients which is
Hmm.
required. So all these metabolites and nutrients are released in the bloodstream, right? And it directly goes to the child, to the when child is being born, or during the entire birth process inside the mother's body, right? So essentially, these, they impact the brain development, right? And again, so if the mother is not eating the right kind of things, or taking too much of supplements, right? Or maybe, taking of antibiotics because doctor has told, or maybe there are some complications, some infections, again, that is all linked to your microbiome, because of the microbiome immune system interaction, right? So essentially, a lot of these harmful metabolites are being produced, right? Which directly impacts the brain development, the gut development, the immune system development, right? So
Uh,
essentially,
Very
when we talk,
important point.
yeah.
Yeah,
So when we
very
talk of
important point.
Yeah. So when we talk of breast milk, so breast milk, is, a lot of people don't know. It is, that is something I don't know why people don't ask questions. So why, a very important question is why the child till 1 year or 6 months of age, why you're not giving them water, right? Because, it is required for hydration, but a lot of people don't know that breast milk is 87% water, right? So
Mm.
essentially, breast milk keep the child hydrated, right? It whatever
Mm.
it the nutrients the breast milk has, right? It actually
Mm.
is metabolized by your microbiome, not by the child, right? And these microbes start releasing short chain fatty acids, which are beneficial short chain fatty acids, which leads to brain and immune system development, right? So if and again,
Right.
so these are two important aspects, right? In terms of
Mm.
how the gut of the child is being colonized initially, even before the birth, right? Even after the birth. Second is, the impact of nutrition choices of mother on the child's health, right? Third is obviously the C-section versus vaginal delivery, right? So, so if you see, the females or the child which are born through C-section have a 23% higher risk of autism spectrum disorder, right? Because when you are born
That's
vaginally,
a very very important point and observation, which you have shared, So 23% higher
yeah,
chances of autism, if it
autism in
is
case of
C-section. Yeah.
C-section, right? So it doesn't mean that if you're born C-section, so you will have autism. There's a higher, susceptibility of developing autism if your gut is imbalanced, right? So in case of it
Mm.
happens. Why? Because in case of vaginal microbiome, right? So a lot of these bacteria are
Mm.
directly coming from mother's gut and vagina. So from vaginal birth, it is a lot of these bacteria comes from mother's gut and vagina, right? So again, if mother's gut is
Mm.
imbalanced or vagina is imbalanced, probably it will impact the child's mental health. But again, so in terms of the C-section, a lot of these bacteria come from mother's skins and external environment, like doctors, hospitals, nurses, right? So the right kind
Yeah.
of bacteria may not colonize the child's gut, right? And that's why there's a high risk of developing autism in case of children having C-section, right? So what I recommend is, so
Mm.
if you have, if your child is born through a C-section, have the right diet, get your microbiome done, understand what is the right food for you, what right nutrients you
Mm.
require, right? And feed the child at least 1.5 to 2 years with through breast milk, right? That is really, really important.
Correct.
Or the recolonization of right
Mm.
set of bacteria, right? So these are
Mm.
a couple of reasons which impact the neurological development of child. Now what happens is, right? So let us talk of certain neurotransmitters, right? So how
Mm.
does, and again I'll share another important thing about protein right here, protein consumption, how it is good or bad, right? So
Yeah.
so what happens is, there are certain category of bacteria which are Clostridium bacteria, right? And
Mm.
these are like bad guys, right? So they actually, what they do is, so if you have heard of Clostridium difficile infection, C. difficile, right? It's the same thing, right? So there's a
Correct.
specific bacteria, right? Uh,
Mm.
which we call as Clostridium tetani, right? And
Yeah.
if it is growing, so it
Which
produces
causes tetanus otherwise. Yeah.
yeah, tetanus neurotoxin, which actually again is produced in the gut. It goes through vagus nerve, cross the blood-brain barrier, and goes to brain. It activates
Mm.
the microglia cells, and it microglia starts doing, there's a lot of neuroinflammation happens, cytokines and chemokines and chemokines, and this triggers neuroinflammation. This impact your autism, right? So this is one
Mm.
aspect. So essentially, let's go back a step back and see, so a lot of this serotonin, as I mentioned, right? So how does
Mm.
gut produce serotonin? So when you're eating a specific amino acid like a tryptophan, right? So if you have a certain bacteria called
Mm.
Bifidobacterium infantis, right? So they convert tryptophan into serotonin,
Mm.
right? So 1 to 2% of the tryptophan is converted into serotonin, right? And again,
Mm.
serotonin is a happiness hormone, and it has been found that children who have autism have very low level of serotonin in the brain, right? So essentially, why this happens? There are certain commensal bacteria which also convert tryptophan into bad things like indoxyl sulfate, right? Which is again an endotoxin,
Hmm.
which is a bad metabolite.
Endotoxin.
Right? So depending upon which bacteria is there, good folks can produce serotonin,
Correct.
or it can produce indole propionic acid, which is an antioxidant, or which is a neuroprotective agent, right? Or indoxyl sulfate,
Hmm.
which does inflammation, right? So from gut to brain,
Correct.
serotonin can be passed through from gut to brain, or you know uh, tetanus endotoxin can go, or short chain fatty acids bitrate can go, right? Besides that, there are certain other metabolites like TMAO. We discussed about
Yeah.
high consumption of choline. So again, acetyl choline is required for the brain development. But if you have certain proteobacteria
Hmm.
active, so choline can be converted into TMA, which goes through your liver and gets converted into TMAO. And TMAO is something which it triggers stress and depression as well. So if there is a high level of choline already in your body, in your system, so if you consume a lot of if mother are taking a lot of L-carnitine and all these high choline foods and a lot of these things, so it leads to headache and stress and depression, right? And that is again passed on to child during the birth, right? Another
Correct.
important there are two more important amino acids which we should know. So what we call as aromatic amino acids. One is tyrosine. Again,
Hmm. Yeah.
a lot of people who eat protein, who go to gym, or who are following particular nutritionists or following a diet, they know what tyrosine or what tryptophan is, right? So these are essentially amino acids, right? So tyrosine, either it is
Hmm.
consumed directly, or phenylalanine is again amino acid, is converted into tyrosine. Now tyrosine metabolized by certain bacteria like Clostridium bacteria, right? It can be converted into 3-ethyl phthyl sulfate, 3-EPS, right? Which again is a
Hmm. Hmm.
harmful
Hmm.
metabolite, which again goes through the gut to the brain, through crosses the BBB, blood-brain barrier, and it does inflammation, right? Similarly,
Hmm.
precresol sulfate, right? So a lot of ammonia
Yeah.
and nitrate and high in nitric acid foods, a lot of these protein sources, that also the precresol is another precondition for development of autism, right? So essentially, thing is, these all are metabolites, whether it is beneficial like serotonin, like short chain fatty acids, or harmful like tetanus endotoxin, or precresol sulfate, or 3-EPS, or indoxyl sulfate. All these are bad, right? So it is like, if you are feeding your microbes bad, they will feed you bad, right? And whatever they feed bad, it crosses your blood brain barrier, and
Early.
start doing neuroinflammation. So these are couple of reasons why child develop autism even before it is born, right? Because all these are
Born.
also transferred during the birth process from mother to child, and also during the lactating period, from the breast milk to the child health, right? So essentially, uh, these are few important aspects which we should consider, right? Uh, you know, uh, from a autism, development of autism perspective, right? So that's how gut microbiome is connected with your with the development of autism, right, in children, right?
Correct.
So to
Yeah.
answer your question of why in India it is less, because if you see, globally there were a lot of saturated fat and high protein consumption, and a lot of these supplementation, and so all these things are in female, and and also because a lot of I have seen a lot of females in the West prefer a particular time or date for birth and delivery. Again, it goes to along to C-section, and a lot of C-sections are happening by choice, right? Not
Yeah.
by default, right? So essentially these are some of the other reasons why the incidence of autism is high in Western world, while vis-a-vis in India. But again, in India also, the rate is increasing, because we have seen, a lot of children are developing, not even autism or ADHD autism, or behavioral abnormalities, irritation during
Hmm.
the initial years of life. And because the microbiome colonization of microbiome during the initial years, does
Hmm.
does impact the later part of life, right? And coming on to what you asked about the genetic testing, right, or genes, right? So there can be cases of 5%, which may be attributed to rare genetic disorder. But if it was the case, then somewhere down
Hmm.
the line, because genes come from your mom and dad, right? So essentially, if a child is developing autism and you blame genes, probably then either mother or father or someone in the family should have that sort of
Hmm.
neurological disorder, right? So
Disorder, yeah.
you cannot blame everything on genes, right? So because your genes doesn't change. So I've been telling, and again I'll use this platform to tell, there are 3 facts we should know, right, which will help
Hmm.
you demystify and don't fall for these genetic claims, right?
Hmm.
One is, our body has 37 trillion cells, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
57% of these cells belong to microbes. It means 20 trillion cells belong to our microbes, right?
Hmm.
That's
Hmm.
first fact. This is fact. There's nothing science about it, right? It's a fact, right?
I,
And
correct.
this is how nature has made humans. So we can't question
Hmm.
that.
Correct.
Second thing is, our body has 25,000 human genes, right? 25,000 human genes, which we get from our parents, right? A body has
Hmm.
20 to 25 million microbial genes. It means that
Hmm.
if you go even by epigenetically, right, you're only one
Hmm.
human being, or
Yeah,
was
correct.
0.1% human being, right?
Hmm.
So again, if you are going for genetic testing and if you're not decoding your microbe, you're just decoding 1%, and paying 20,000, 25,000 for a test which is just going to tell you whether which genes are there, or tell you a rare genetic disorder, is not going to help you, right? Third thing is,
So this will, this will also go with the observation I have seen that,
mm,
poor people,
mm,
coming from the countryside and all, the prevalence of autism is way, way less
mm,
because they have less C-section.
mm,
They do not have too many proteins, antibiotics, and supplements and blah blah in the diet of mother, neither in the baby.
mm.
They don't use artificial stuff, even breastfeeding happens, most extensively in those cases. So maybe what you're saying is also correlating to this observation, which I have that, generally it is the middle class. Generally, it is the middle class staying in the cities
Mm.
who go to the doctors all the time for, a drop of a hat, and doctor keeps giving, whatever he or she thinks is, to be given, maybe it is an excess or maybe it is, just without any testing or anything.
Mm.
So I think you pretty much very well covered, on that particular aspect.
I'll tell you 3 more things here, right, which just came into mind because you brought this point. So tell you 3 more things which I never thought I will cover in this talk, but this is really, really
Mm,
important, right? So third thing is, our genes doesn't change
mm,
from the time we are born
mm,
to the time we die, right? So essentially, even if someone has died, if you do his DNA testing after 2 years of his death, his genes would be same, right? So essentially, genes cannot be, a reason for development of autism in 95% of the cases, right?
mm,
So
mm,
let's not blame genes about it. And second thing is, as you rightly pointed, the nutrients. So what is happening is, I know 2 things are here, so iron and folic acid, right? These are
mm,
two supplements, or I'll say nutrients, right? I'll say,
mm,
iron and folate, not folic acid, right? So
mm,
these are
mm.
2 nutrients which are required during the pregnancy, right? Because
Yeah.
iron do helps in your hemoglobin levels and blood circulation, a lot of other biological functions, and even folate is required. So vitamin B9 is required during the pregnancy for neurological development of the child as well, right? So now here the biggest gap is, right, so if you talk of iron, right? So a
Mm,
lot of
mm,
every doctor will start taking iron supplements, right? So what we have found that a lot of people who have a high methane gas production, or have a slow food motility, or females who have a lot of constipation issues, right? Because
mm,
the food is not digested properly, right? So
mm,
in those
mm.
cases, a lot of food which you are eating, which is high in iron, like spinach, right? So you don't get the iron absorption right, and then again you have iron deficiency, and then even if you take you know iron supplements, it is not going to help, because iron is one of those nutrients which doesn't get excreted out of your body quickly, and a lot of these
Quickly, yeah.
iron, if you don't get the right absorption of iron inside the body, this gets stored inside the body and can have a lot of multiple issues, like it can have skin issues like eczema, it can feed a lot of salmonella pathogens which can trigger leaky gut, right? And the solution to is there are certain lactobacillus fermentin and certain other lactobacillus species which aids in the absorption of iron, right? So essentially, from iron absorption perspective, also you really need to understand, that the microbes play a role here, right?
Yeah.
Second
Absolutely.
is folate, right? Why I'm saying folate and not folic acid? So folate again comes from various foods. Spinach is one of them. So spinach is one of that food which gives you iron and folate both, right? So now a lot of doctors recommend folic acid, right? Is which is a cousin of, I'll say, cousin of folate, and the problem with the folic acid is, first thing is in synthetic form, right? So it is already preloaded with a lot of metals which can impact your kidney and liver functioning, right? Second thing is, these supplements are not metabolized in your microbiome. These are metabolized in liver, right? And there are certain, so the enzymes which are responsible for metabolizing or absorbing these, folate or folic acid, is the bioavailability of them is very low, right? So a lot of this, excrete through feces, and you have folate deficiency, and then you start taking a lot of these folic acids, and so again, that's why you may not know that you have folate deficiency, but because you're taking you're taking these capsules because your doctor has told, but these are things which come later on. This impact your child's mental growth. Third thing, which is important, which is not in our control, but is important to mention here, because that's why we really need to fix our gut, right? We fix our microbiome. So of late, we discussed about this thing earlier also, that because of globalization and human activities, a lot of these agriculture areas are being converted into urbanized areas, and so the soil development, right, or the soil health is getting impacted, because like us, our body needs some sort of rest. So soil also needs, and plants also need some rest, but because of the expansive population, now we have surpassed China also in population, right? So because of expansion population, we really need to have a lot of production, because we really need to have these plants to eat, right? And the bioavailability of because of this, and because of globalization, the bioavailability of various nutrients like magnesium, iron, zinc, selenium, all this is going down, right? So even from the food you are buying, you're consuming, right, it is actually not giving the right set of nutrients, right? So there are multiple factors. One is obviously you're not getting the right set of nutrients from the food. Second thing is because of inflammation inside your gut, inside your body, because of the gut dysbiosis. Again, you're not able to absorb a lot of nutrients, including iron and folate and a lot of other vitamin B12 and a lot of these things, right? So essentially, you are actually going in a very deep well of diseases, right? And it is going to impact the offspring also, right? So these are really, really important aspects to be considered, right? Obviously, soil health is not in our control, right? And in our control is obviously what we eat, what we feed our microbiome, right? So there is a deep-rooted connection between your microbiome and autism, right? So if your child has some symptoms like this, so don't consider constipation as a symptom of autism. It can be, it may be not. It can be due to sugar. It can be due to high consumption of high proteins also, right? In your child's diet or in your diet, right? So essentially, you need to understand, okay, protein is required with specific amino acid, how it is, who is metabolizing those who is fermenting those amino acids, right? So that's why understanding your microbiome, the functional activity of a microbiome is really important. And that's what we do for a child. So we always recommend for women or female or mothers who are expecting, right? Get your microbiome done every every trimester, right? So during pregnancy, get it done 3 times, right? That is really important. Okay. So I think these are few important points we should consider, right? Don't Behavioral therapies and antibiotics are not going to help, right? Fix your gut, fix your microbiome, right? And in if anyone is interested for their child, you can reach out to us, right? We'll help you with with fixing the microbiome of the child as well as the mother, right? And please feel free to reach out to us, and if you want, we can also give a detailed report for the doctor, right? So that doctor can also understand how your biology is responding right now, right? And
Yeah.
what you really need, whether you really need some antibiotics, or you really need which nutrient is lacking, why it is lacking, right? So this is something which we really want to help people here. So we are in a business of helping people or empowering people to take back control of their health in their own hands, right? And our first objective is always help people, right? Unlike
Yeah.
a lot of companies which are there to just make money, right? So our first
And
mot
Sushant, so you spoke at length about autism, and I'm sure audience must have soaked a lot of useful information, particularly on this particular problem, which is growing leaps and bounds across the globe in
Mhm.
India. But when we talk about Lil Bio, in addition to autism, what are the other
Okay.
three, four things which will be covered, for 0 to 14 years
Oh,
population?
okay. Quickly, I'll say so. From 0 to 14 years is what we do is, so the gut testing for, or the gut microbiome solution for child is entirely different from that of adult, right? And that's why we have two separate products for child and for adult, right? So what we decode is what is the child's gut type, whether it has a lot of bifidobacterium. So bifidobacterium is the most beneficial stuff, right?
Mm.
Beneficial bacteria which is required for a lot of improving biological functions or healthy biological functions, right? So we can tell you whether
Yeah.
it is high or low, right? It is whether it is dominated by streptococcus, enterococcus, clostridium, so it all have an indication. So you get the gut type even before, during the first 6 months or 1 year of your child's birth, right? Second is,
Okay.
we also tell you how well your baby is digesting, or how well your baby's gut is metabolizing HMO, which is human milk
Mm.
glucosaccharides, which is one of the essential sugar which comes from breast milk, right?
Right.
We can tell what is the risk of developing autism, what is the risk of developing eczema, food intolerance, food allergies, and the risk of antibiotic resistant signature, right? The risk of metabolic health, neurodevelopment, signatures. So these are few additional things which we give, which no one else actually is giving you in India or in Asia, so as to speak.
Mm.
Apart from that, we'll also tell the basic biological pathways, right? From how well your baby is guts is absorbing protein, fats, carbohydrates, oxalate metabolism, uric acid metabolism, TMAO, antioxidants, serotonin production, so there are multiple,
So many useful things which can actually come out of this. So really appreciate, any other points which you think are relevant uh, for this particular category, or we can wind up,
So,
so
so, so the two things I'll say before we wind up. One is obviously, do not fall for fat diets. Do not fall for any diets based on your blood work. We have discussed a lot of times your blood work has a lot of variability, so they may not show the true picture of your health, of your child's health, right? Uh,
yeah.
do not fall for any recommendations given, food recommendations given by any person based on questionnaire or the DNA testing, because the any recommendation given by an individual is dominated by guesswork and belief system which may or may not work, right? Do not eat
Yeah.
too much of protein, right? And one more indication that mother's gut is imbalanced: if after the birth of a child you have gained weight, right, it means
Yeah.
it was not right during the pregnancy,
Mm.
right? So, and that
Correct.
is the case with 90% of the mothers I know for that.
Others, yeah.
So if you lose weight immediately, if you are a normal weight after birth, probably your diet was right. So your kid's diet would also be good. But if you have
Yeah.
a lot of, because I've seen a lot of females would then start going to gym to reduce weight, right? Is
Yeah.
one,
Correct.
fixing your gut, you're just suppressing your symptom, right? So essentially understand that's why gut microbiome testing is really, really important at each trimester, right? I think I
Absolutely.
lastly want to point out that we are now starting a very important initiative, which is very, very great for people. So from 3rd of May, we are every Wednesday we are doing a question answer sessions, right? So I'm
Yeah.
going to
Yeah.
share a lot of these things on our social media platforms. You can check up there. There will be a specific form which you all can fill up, right? And you can also share your questions. We will answer those questions, right? With our science team, we'll try our best to answer whatever health queries you have, and that's all free of cost, right? We're not charging
Yeah.
anything for it, right? It's just a way of educating people around it, right? So again, every Wednesday from 3rd of May, we'll be starting this, and every week we will take 5 questions, right? And so
Hmm.
you can share whether you have an metabolic health or digestive health, or neurodegenerative health issues, or food intolerances, or infections, or whatever you have. You can point out, and we'll be happy to answer those questions.
Excellent. So, Sushant, I would say thank you very much for giving so much uh, deep knowledge and information, which can be really helpful for a lot of people. And I would end up the talk by saying that, we all care and love, greenery outside. And as I said last time as well, so we have to equally care for the greenery inside.
Yeah.
तो जितना बाहर सुंदर हमें देखना ग्रीनरी अच्छा लगता है लेट अस इंश्योर अंदर से भी we are that much green, having right kind of microbiome and microflora inside.
Yeah.
So with that, thank you very much for your time,
Yeah.
and looking forward to several more sessions together, which can help audience to beat chronic diseases. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Take care, sir. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you. Bye.